Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for those joining us. We are really excited to have this conversation. We intended on having our in-person workshop focused on restorative practices back in April, but obviously had to cancel that. And with everything going on now, we've been hearing from a lot of families how challenging this is and the struggles that they're experiencing with at-home learning. And so we wanted to revamp and kind of shift this workshop we intended on doing a month ago to help address some of those needs. And we have two amazing staff members who are going to be leading this conversation, both of which who have kids at home, so they can personally relate to this. So we have Brandi Taylor, who is our resident restorative practice trainer, and she has a son in elementary school. And then we have Nichole Sims, who is our parent lead, and she is, she has a daughter in middle school and a granddaughter in elementary school, both of which live at home with her. And so we are really excited to hear the tips from them and talk through some things before we get started. And I'll be adding these into the chat as we go along. One, those of you that know that I said at the beginning, I am recording this session because we want to share this out to our networks afterwards. So we are recording. Two, if you have any questions as we're going through the tips in the conversation, please just add them to the chat, and then I will be sure to field as many of those questions as possible at the end when we do a Q&A session. And if we don't get to your questions that you ask, please know we will be sharing our contact information so that you can reach out to us later. I'll be sharing a link to get your contact information so that we can connect with you and continue this conversation. And then finally, as many of you know, and those of you who already joined, I see you're on mute. So please just make sure you stay on mute. It helps kind of avoid any background noise and such. So again, please feel free to use the chat, and we'll pass it on to Brandi and Nichole now.
All right. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Brandi, and I want to thank you all for taking the time to join us today. Today's discussion will be brief but informative. We are scheduled for about 30 minutes. However, we'll go over a little bit if we need to. Today's tips are on a hot topic that we've had a lot of people post about on social media and other places, and that is the challenge of homeschooling or at-home assisted learning. I think that's the word I'm supposed to use instead of homeschooling. But we've seen a whole lot of feedback on the need to know or the need to understand how to navigate during this time. So I'm going to provide 3 tips in regards to how to navigate. But I want to say that they're not profound. They are things that you already know, that you've already heard. And today I'm just going to reiterate those 3 things and give encouragement on it and a little background in regards to those 3 tips. So understanding that our current situation that we're in, it's not the norm. It is not the norm for yourself or for your children. I want to say that you should be able to or not allow the standards or the expectations from social media, from your friends, from family members to actually dictate what's normal or what's acceptable in your home for you and your children. I think those pressures are a lot. And so therefore, we are getting stressed with those things that we need to handle at home. So the first thing that the first tip that I have in regards to the homeschooling, if you're a parent who is either at home all day or a parent who is still trying to toggle your workload and be at home, the first tip is structure. So the structure that I speak of will create a designated time for you to be able to focus and to pause and play. And so I have some suggestions on what that structure can look like. But again, I want you to be mindful that that structure is designed specifically for you and your household and what works best for you guys. But what structure does, it allows you to build in a necessary time for you to pause to do the things that you need to do that are most important, that you are prioritizing. It doesn't mean that you're not allowed to make room for flexibility. It just fills in that time. One of the things that providing structure for your children will do as well is it alleviates boredom, because in the time that children are getting bored, we oftentimes see behavior that we're not so fond of. So it does that. So the structure, and I have like just like a suggestion of what that structure would look like. I have a lot of papers here, so help bear with me for a second. Here we are. So getting up in the morning, if you awake at around 8:30 or 9 o'clock, you might want to put in time to relax with your family. You'll have your academics that you're going to focus on as well. So it may go from math to science. You'll have snack time, you'll have lunch time, break, outdoor time, arts and crafts, free and fun time. You may even have a time where you're going to have electronics, or then you're going to get into your dinner time. So that's what I mean by structure. And beginning in the morning, making sure that the academics are in there, building in time for you to have conversation pieces with your children. The outdoor time can just be a nice little walk or anything like that. So that's what I mean in regards to structure. So that's my my first tip there. And I have to go back and say, please allow time for flexibility. So even though you are have a structure for your children Monday through Friday, please understand that things are different during this time, and that sometimes you're going to have to switch those things around, especially for the parents who are still working. You know, if you have to jump on a Zoom call, that time that you had scheduled to do your academics with your children may have to be pushed to later on in the day. So be sure to show yourself some grace. Also, the second tip we have is patience. So patience is definitely needed. Patience will help you to develop that structure that you need. It'll also help you to respond and not just react. So for my parents out there who are already aware of these are the things that are needed in these stressful times. These tips are specific for people who struggle with it. Not that it's necessarily that, oh, well, I already knew that we needed patience to do these things. That's you're right. But there are people who do not know how to manage their patients. And like I said, we want to be focused on being restorative, and that is responding instead of reacting. And people like myself, like there was no prerequisite to have a child. I struggle every single day with patience, so I'm mindful on what that looks like. So when developing structure, I want to make sure that I have a time in there that I'm focused on being mindful. Did I reply to my child in a way that will allow him to want to come back to me and ask me questions and not feel like I can't manage my own emotions? So that is developing patience and putting that into play is the second tip. But also, so people who are familiar with my training understand what I mean when I say affective statement. So using affective language is a way to exemplify the patient. So you're using affective statements to discuss or to talk about how someone else's behaviors or how your children's behaviors are affecting you in that way, in whatever way the behaviors that they're exemplifying. So being able to meditate, being able to do things like yoga. For some people, it may be praying. Whatever it is that you need to do to be able to take that time out for your children, because again, this is not the norm. Neither one of us, you nor your child, asked to be in this situation. And so you want to be very, very mindful of focusing on your patients, whatever that may be for you. Sometimes that time that may be needed is just for you to be able to read a book, or to sit by yourself and to drink a cup of coffee. It varies for each individual, but be sure to focus on that. The third tip that I have is creativity. So creativity comes in when for the two different, you'll have parents that have tons of time now because they're just at home. And then you'll have parents that only have a little bit of time because they're still working. And so you want to be creative in managing the time that you do have, either a whole lot or just a little bit of time. And so creativity will comes in when you need to develop those the activities that you're going to do, or things that may become boring after you do them for 2 or 3 times. So I have some resources that I also said I was going to share to try to help people manage that, because everyone is not creative, and I understand that. There are tons of resources out there that will help you tap into that creative side of arts and crafts, or conversation starters and things like that throughout the day. So the first thing I spoke on is structure. The second is patience. And the third is creativity. Again, I said these are things that you've already heard before. And I'm here to just reiterate it from a restorative perspective and to offer encouragement to all the parents that are struggling, because myself, I struggled. I struggled horribly to the point that I wanted to just basically give up and not even assist my son at home. And so before I move into that story, I wanted to know if Nichole, are you there? You still with me?
I'm sorry, I was waiting to, I thought someone else was going to unmute me. I didn't want to go back and forth. So I'm here. Thanks everyone for joining. I did really appreciate everything that you added about the 3 different steps. And for each of those, I of course thought of, ways that I have been managing those things and what has been helpful for me. And I think you kind of touched on most of it, but I wanted to mention just a few more things. So for structure, each time I hear structure, or I heard you say like a schedule, in my head, I have to automatically add loose schedule or loose structure, because let me get back here to everyone, because for me, being on a really tight schedule was just very hard, based on having each of my children having schedules for school and different times that they're on Zoom videos and things like that. And then for my own schedule, it was just a little bit difficult. So everything is loose, and we are adjusting that as we go. So I wanted to just mention that loose schedules may be needed along with that flexibility that you mentioned. I thought it was really important that you talked about adding regular breaks. That's something that I wasn't doing initially. I'm doing that better now, and that's been helpful. And then the only other thing I wanted to add was the different times that you said there's times for, like, different things throughout the day. And one of the things that has been helpful for me is to add an end time at the end of the day, based on what time we begin our loose schedule for the day. I say, okay, we're going to work until this time, and then, we'll be done. And if somebody is lagging behind and they have something that, really I don't think should be pushed to the next day, I add that to the end of the day. Maybe in the evening, I say, okay, after dinner or after your snack, just finish that last paper. And that's been helping me keep my structure and sanity. For patients, I would just say everything that you added. I've been working on being really restorative. One of the things that I'm doing a lot is working on my patients, and I'm learning that having those conversations calmly with your children is also, or with my children, is also allowing them and helping them to work on their patience, and they're, being patient with themselves and being patient with me. And then you did go over the creativity piece, right, Brandi?
I did. Yes.
Okay, I thought so. And then, so for creativity, I just wanted to add one of the things that has been helpful for my family personally, and I've shared it with others who said that they've appreciated also, is adding some of those fun things that we aren't really cognizant of during the day because we're so busy trying to get the work done. So somebody mentioned to me to add puzzles, and I realized we had never done that. So now we're doing puzzles and we're coloring and we're making time for all of that fun stuff. And then also the schools, I believe, or PPS even, I know has posted a few things. A+ schools, we post a lot of resources and things. If you run out of creative ideas or you're just looking for different ones, we post resources, tips, and ways to be creative and keep this whole thing from being too stale or mundane. And then to always remember that kids are always learning, even when they appear to be having fun. I have my kids watching things and writing a couple sentences for the 3rd grader or a paragraph for the 7th grader. So just those types of things I would say I wanted to add to what you already mentioned.
Yep. Thank you. And the flexibility piece, the loose structure, absolutely. Being able to be flexible in that structure. Again, I can't say it enough. This is what works best for you in your household. So you're developing that according to your needs. And so remember a couple of things when I focus on patience is one of the tips, is because if you're a parent who is unable to regulate your emotions during this time, you can just only imagine how stressful it is for children to be able to regulate their time, their stress levels. So also remember that your children are having a hard time trying not to give you a hard time. Like, you have to remember those things. And so I'm always tying everything that I do back to being restorative, because that's what I train in. I train in being restorative in the home, being restorative in everywhere you are in all your surroundings, at work, out in the community, with your spouses, it just everywhere it applies. And so when I talk about these three things, it's understood that I'm coming from the tools and the processes that I train on when I use the language affective statements. Part of this is understanding the compass of shame and how behaviors they come from emotions. So if you can better understand the triggered emotion there that you're seeing the behavior, then you'll be able to help better assist your children, because they're struggling as well. If you understand that piece, you can understand yourself better, and it will help you work with your children. Understanding those pieces to work with your coworkers as well. So I also, with the restorative practice training, there is the thing that I train on the social discipline window, remembering to stay within the restorative box, as opposed to being punitive, as opposed to neglectful, or not for being doing things for your children. You want to stay within that. So again, this whole thing, it came from the stressors that we've heard a lot of parents speaking on in regards to fitting in the challenges of homeschooling or assisted at home learning, because we're for most of us, we're not teachers. That's not our area of expertise. We are parents. And so that began to become an extreme challenge when dealing with children of different ages, dealing with still having to work and cook, and you're cooking more than you were, and you're still cleaning. And for myself, I was, I'm still cleaning, right, as I go along with the cooking. And I was like, oh my goodness, pick that up, put that down. And so it became a challenge. And so I had to draw on all of the things that I already knew and from this restorative work. And then I drew off of different things like Dr. Brene Brown, which her work directly ties into being restorative. And so the situation with myself and my son was, I was becoming overwhelmed. And so although his school is really, really great, and they didn't require you to have this work done each day, it was that he was turning in his work at the end of the week. However, my lifestyle and having to still be employed, I was pushing his work off to the end of the day. Well, that became a stressor because I wasn't absolutely dedicated to that time that we were working. And so I'm still pushing and I'm still pushing, and it was stressing me out. And my stress was then put off on my son. So my responses were now reactions, and I wasn't the most positive mom. My patience was out the window, and then I had to kind of take a step back. And so the thing that I remember that I learned, and again, this is like the restorative piece, and tying in Dr. Brene Brown, was her anatomy of trust, and then the acronym she uses it, and it's BIG. So it is, what boundaries do I need to set for me to respond with integrity and to give the generous assumptions about the intentions and words and actions of others. So I have it typed right here, and I'll repeat it one more time to help you understand what I meant. So what boundaries do I need to set for me to respond with integrity and give the most generous assumptions about the intentions, words, and actions of others? And that is that I had to set boundaries to understand that I couldn't just give up and not do this work with my son. I had to set a boundaries of what was going to work with us, and me still assist him in that. And so instead of doing all of the things that they needed us to do, which was getting on the computer and doing the package and then uploading some things and navigating the different tabs, and then all of those different things didn't work for us. So the boundary that I set specifically for us was just doing the physical package. It was easier for me to help him understand the pages that he had to do for that day and explain the directions to him and allow him to work on his own. If he became challenged, he would ask me questions, and at the end of his work being done, then I would go over it with him. That's what worked with me, and that was setting that boundary, and that was allowing me to again respond with integrity, because my values were there of wanting to be as restorative as possible. But when I was really stressed and I didn't have boundaries set for what worked for me, then I was reacting and not responding. So that's what happened. That's what helped right there. And then there's the generous assumption, right, of everyone's words and actions and their intentions. So now I can give a generous assumption that you are doing the best that you can do, Braden, that you aren't just trying to wiggle around in seats when I'm trying to help you understand what you have to do, or that you're doing the best that you can do in navigating this laptop because you're used to doing all of your work on paper. And so, and I also wanted to give a generous assumption to the staff at his school, because I really thought that they had kind of set this whole plan to my demise. Like for a week, they plotted with Thanos, I meant to say, to actually take me under. I honestly thought that, okay, what are these teachers doing, or what are they thinking when they're giving us all of these different things that we have to do? So my assumption at that time was, you want to take me under as a parent. But after setting these boundaries and still being able to respond, and even in my email to them, it was basically saying, this is what we can do, and we're going to do the best that we can. And I also added that they should check on those parents that struggle through these times. And so remembering that is a restorative piece when you are able to say, I'm doing the best that I can, because all of this is new to me. All of this is new to my children, and it's a challenge for both of us. And so what looks normal to you, and you're the super person and you're the super woman and you're able to do all of these things, I am not. And being able to relay that in a restorative way. And one other thing I want to reiterate is to focus on the patience over productivity, because you can get this back. You can recoup your children's grades. You can recoup their academics. You are missing an opportunity to bond with your children when you're focused more on that academics as opposed to their social and their emotional state that each of us are going through. So please show yourself some grace. Please show your children some grace as well.
Thanks, Brandi and Nichole. So before we go on, just wanted to open it up. I had been asking in the chat if there was any questions, and we haven't gotten any yet. So I just want to open it up, since we are such a small group. If anyone listening and on the call with us wants to just speak up and ask a question related to their personal situation, so we can pause just a leave some space for that for a minute.
Hi, this is Geeta from A+ Schools, and I just wanted to, talking with Brandi about this, she said something that really stuck with me, and it seems like such a little thing, but the creativity part, when you find patience and you have structure, you had said that, for example, you could turn something like a timeout chair into a thinking chair. And that really struck me because it is just sometimes in those little things, the way you word it, how my son is 8 and I tried that and the way he reacted, it sort of made me pause for a minute because he reacted so much more positively to considering it a thinking chair. And so we were able to get back on track much faster. So I thought that was a really great tip.
Yeah, I'm sorry for you guys that didn't hear that out there. That was like part of my notes that I was going over, that creativity, it takes some thought. It's some people it's at the tip and they're right on it, but for others they struggle. And so that was just one of the ideas that I got out there in the idea land, that using, instead of the timeout chair, it's a thinking chair, but there are tons of other things. And so I'll go into that. Thank you, Geeta, for reminding me. So I have these cards. Oh goodness, I hope you can see them. Our moments, and it's kids, and these cards are conversation starters for great relationships. So and I'll take a few out to show you guys. They have all different types of conversation starters for your children, for you and your kids to have discussions. Is specific to building the parent and child relationship. So when you may be cooking dinner, you can just have them pick a card and then you will read the question and you'll have a discussion about it. So where sometimes you just have silence, you can have a conversation. You can take this opportunity to develop that side of your child. Just not academics, but these questions are thought provoking, and so it allows you to have structured time. It's not anything heavy. It is just a creative piece. But I also have some. I'm having a hard time getting these in the box here. I have. Bear with me with the papers. There are four different things I have here. I'll read them off to you, but they are resources. So coloringkind.com. They are a business that promotes social and emotional learning through their boxes that you can purchase. They have a quarantine activities for kids box. They have a spring into fun box. So that does cost. But there is also another company called kiwicode.com, and they have activities in a box as well. You can shop for those boxes by the interest, like science, arts and design, geography and culture, and even early learning. They also have a tab on there that offers free at-home resources and activities and ideas. So although their boxes are, they cost, and then you can buy one for a month, 3 months, 6 months, or even a year. And I want to say they range from like $12.95 to $19.95 is the most expensive. And then there's feelslikehome.blog.com, and they have 150 screen-free activities for kids and teens. And so when you go onto that blog, you can just read through it. There is also wordmint.com, so you can create your own worksheets, quizzes, and puzzles. And that'll allow your children to have something that you can work on together to develop those, and then or create them and then work on after you are finished. And then finally, I have an app that I tried out called Family 5. And that app on my phone, it allows us to journal. It provides activities for children and parent and child, and then it has goals. It even has aspirations for the day that are age specific. It helps with different discussions and different situations. Like they all give you tips on how to have those discussions with your children. So most of us do have some sort of smartphone or access to the internet, and so that app is very, very useful. So those things help you to develop those things that are creative in nature. So if there aren't any more questions, I will give a few more tips that bring this. Oh, go ahead, Nichole. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just thinking while you were saying all that, don't forget, like, I feel like one of the most important things is don't forget to get outside. I know after a few weeks, I reminded myself that we could go on the porch and we could like sit in the yard with a blanket and do a puzzle in the front yard where we can see cars go by. Like, get outside, whatever that means for you in your driveway, on your balcony, and get your kids outside a little bit. That's been extremely helpful also.
Yes.
To alleviate stress and have you spend time together.
Yes. Build that into that structure. We're going to go outside. Even if some are introverts and they want to stay indoors, you can stay to yourself to the side outside. Just breathe, inhale the fresh air. So yeah, building that in, build that outdoor into your time. So one other thing that I wanted to talk about was my ability to come back and set those boundaries were specific to letting go of perfectionism. So if you are that parent that feels like you have to do everything so well, and I think that's where I was, because I felt like I'm a trainer of restorative practices. And so how dare I not be able to toggle all of these things at the same time and be perfect at it. So it was really stressing me that I was not even the most patient parent, because I'm supposed to be, right? So letting go of that perfectionism and understanding that you can't be perfect in all areas is one of the things that helped me to get through that time. And then also, I keep going from book to book to just remind myself of the compass of shame. For those who aren't aware, again, that's a tool or a process that I speak of in the training, and understanding affects and how they work and behaviors and things. Understanding where my behaviors stem from has helped tremendously in coping or dealing with children. Understanding where those, where it's beginning, and how I'm a little bit more stressed from being in the house all day long. Even when we're doing the different activities, it's still okay. I'm recognizing it and addressing it appropriately. And so those are a few things that people who have been privy to be part of the trainings understand, or they're familiar with, even if they're not like really using them every single day. The language is familiar with them, and this is how it ties into the need to understand you're not a failure as a parent. You have these things on your plate that were not typically there, and you're struggling, and it's okay. And so again, I didn't, nothing profound here, just encouragement and reiteration of what it's going to take to get through this time.
Thank you so much, Brandi and Nichole. So in the chat, I shared our contact information. We would love to continue this conversation with you as well too. Up on your screen now, I'm sharing the full handout that we were sharing tidbits of as Brandi was talking through the tips that also has our contact information on it. So don't hesitate to reach out to us, and also follow us on our Facebook page. We have a lot of other great resources we're sharing there. The resources Brandi referenced, we'll be sure to share those in the comments of when we share this video out. So we really appreciate everyone's time and for tuning in. And when we share this video, please share it out to your friends as well too, because you are all not alone, and you are not a failure. And we're all learning as we go through this together. So we really appreciate everyone's time. And thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.